The exceptionally composed soundtrack of Chrono Cross is the topic of this episode of Music Design. Composer Yasunori Mitsuda began work on Chrono Cross right after he finished Chrono Trigger's soundtrack. Interestingly, Mitsuda decided to include influences from Celtic, Mediterranean, and percussive African music in this new soundtrack. The original soundtrack disc itself spans almost 3 hours, with Mitsuda composing, arranging, and producing the album. As a composer, it is important to note the context in which your music is being played. For this tune, an overworld map theme must not be abrasive, and especially not repetitive. It also must not push one emotion too much over another, so that it can fit within multiple points within the story. Mitsuda went with a melancholy approach and a relatively slow tempo at 86 beats per minute. The song is about 1 minute long before the loop point here, which is just about the time it takes for players to use that world map. Now for the instruments, they're all on the softer side. They can be separated into what I like to call the harmony instruments, which is the choir, the strings, the piano, and the warm pad. As you can see, they have these wide open spacings for the voicings. And then we have the melody instruments, the fretless bass, the acoustic guitar, and the cello. And each have their own individual lines that are very distinctive from one another. So, beginning in section 1A, the choir strings quickly fade in as an introduction. Now let's think about this. How would a composer loop back to the beginning if there's this intro part here? So there are two options. The first is the old way school of thinking of solving this problem, is splitting the song in two. We would just take this beginning fade out and then cut it like this. So now you have two sections. You have this introduction, which I can just solo and you can see how it plays out. And it just fades out there. Then you would take this entire other section of the song up until that loop point. And then this section would be repeated and looped over and over again after you play this intro. But the second option is to use a software like Fmod or WWise. We would not have to split up the song, but we would assign a loop marker at this point in section 1B, or rather right after that intro section right here. And then we go right up to the loop point. So imagine in Fmod you would have this intro section which would just play in a straight line this way, and then when you hit that loop marker it would progress throughout the song, and then when you hit this point that loop would go all the way back to here, and it would no longer go back to that introduction part. Okay, taking a look at the music now, both the choir and the strings use a similar quarter note pattern, and also the piano as well. So it's simply these fourth interval for this piano part, and you can see it goes down to thirds, then fifth. Now, this quarter note pattern is kind of used as more like a rhythm element of the song. As for the warm pad, the other harmony instrument, it is humble, I should say. It usually only plays these 2 or 3 notes here. The pad provides a lower, warmer texture that I think the song would miss if the pad wasn't there. Now listen to how it gives the song a little extra lift. So this is without it. And this is with. So for the bass, it's definitely a classic Mitsuda bass line. So this begs the question, what does make Yasunori Mitsuda's bass line so distinctive? I can point to some reasons. The melody itself is arranged much like a jazz bass line, the bass sound unique due to how the bass was never really used like this in video games before. Of course, you have that fretless bass, which is an interestingly sounding instrument, and I think is instantly recognizable. And then the final reason I think is the bass in Mitsuda songs are always very present in the mix, meaning that they usually take up a lot of volume as well. So looking at the actual bass line here, it simply highlights the root of each chord change, and at the end of the measure, it is a short riff. So on to our final instrument in this section, the guitar. Let's give a listen to that. So you can see there's no set interval leap in each of these notes. So I'm certain that Mitsuda programmed these notes in, or at least played them on his piano. The chords it plays are as follows: the D minor add 2, the A sharp sus4, F add 2, C over G, and C add 4. Now you'll see these add 2s and add 4s a lot in this piece in the acoustic guitar. So let's play that section 1 one more time. Since all of the instruments follow the same chord progression, we'll look at the acoustic guitar only. You'll see that Mitsuda likes to add those add 2 chords a lot. A sharp add 2, A minor add 2. And then sus chords usually like to add the tension before moving on to this resolution chord you'll see at the end of the next section. Section 2 ends in this last transition section where everything lands on the 5th of the scale degree of D, which should be the A, as you can see, and then it resolves to the D at the loop point. This is a classic chord regression trick in music. Let's take a listen to that section 2. Again, look at the articulation here. That is all that comprises of this beautiful song. Thank you all for watching and most importantly listening to this analysis of Dream of the Shore Near Another World by Yasunori Mitsuda. Enjoy this full recreation of the song and I'll see you in the next episode of Music Design. Farewell.